I am not wrong. I'll show you their pamphlets. Everything with them is the influence of environment, and nothing else. Their favorite phrase, from which it follows that, if society is normally organized, all crime will cease at once, since there will be nothing to protest against and all men will become righteous in one instant. Human nature is not taken into account. It is excluded. It is not supposed to exist. They don't recognize that humanity developing by a historical living process will become at last a normal society. But they believe that a social system that has come out of some mathematical brain is going to organize all humanity at once and make it just and sinless in an instant, quicker than any living process. That's why they instinctively dislike history. Nothing but ugliness and stupidity in it, and they explain it all as stupidity. That's why they so dislike the living process of life. They don't want a living soul. The living soul demands life. The soul won't obey the rules of mechanics. The soul is an object of suspicion. The soul is retrograde. But what they want, though, it smells of death, and can be made of India rubber, at least is not alive, has no will, is servile and won't revolt. And it comes in the end to their reducing everything to the building of walls and the planning of rooms and passages in a phalanstery. The phalanstery is ready indeed, but your human nature is not ready for the phalanstery. It wants life. It hasn't completed its vital process. It's too soon for the graveyard. You can't skip over nature by logic. Logic presupposes 3 possibilities, but there are millions. Cut away a million and reduce it all to the question of comfort. That's the easiest solution of the problem. It's seductively clear and you mustn't think about it. That's the great thing, you mustn't think. The whole secret of life in 2 pages of print. This book has so many elements on it, so while I may only speak on a few elements here, know that this is not the sole interpretation of the story, and there are many more elements and interpretations to be found within it. Most of my interpretations have to do with how I feel about it alone. Now, before I get into my main analysis, I have to point out that this book could definitely be a prequel to Brave New World, because maybe Raskolnikov had a guilty conscience when he did a crime to ultimately help others and to prove a theory that this is way better than the current laws organized, but someone else definitely came along and was the outlier in the system to make the Brave New World possible. These people may not be righteous by any means, but their ideas and influence are so bold that it will change how the system is organized. The only thing it cannot change is human nature, the things that stand in hearts. While there are many nuances of how humans act and organize themselves, in Crime and Punishment, there are 3 types of people I see in this system organized by logic. There are the unfortunate, the nobles, and the oblivious. In my discussion of the trial by Franz Kafka, I made the claim that people put each other on trial to certain degrees in order to keep the power so they don't get put on trial themselves, and then from that, a sort of class system evolves. We're all still human, yes, but the class system you're in tends to determine what kind of immediate advantages or disadvantages you have in front of you. When I think of the unfortunate, I think of the characters from the TV show Shameless, who are put in a rough situation from the get-go, and they have to decide if they're going to survive or be swallowed whole by those trying to survive. Or, even worse, those deliberately pushing people down to keep the power. These people may commit crime because they have to. I would say that it's a sort of nihilism that comes from this hopelessness. They reject those moral and religious principles just to try and get out of this vicious cycle of hopelessness. So you have Raskolnikov, our main character, who thinks he's above this law because he's trying to get money to survive so that his sister and mother could survive. So, spoiler alert, he kills a terrible, mean old pawn woman to get her money and jewels. Immediately after having success in killing her and retrieving the items, though, he is put in the position where he must also kill her stepsister, who did nothing wrong. I often wonder if his conscience would have been as guilty if he was able to spare the stepsister. Would he have made the same decision if he knew he would have to kill the stepsister as well? In this way, is this why the cycle of the unfortunate is so vicious? Because one may do a crime to get out of the situation, but will that lead them to another crime they must commit to get out of that situation? Do this so many times until this crime becomes a part of your everyday surroundings, and then becomes who you are and who you must be. You've also got his sister Dunya, who is almost swallowed whole by Peter Petrovich, her fiancé, who she sacrifices herself to for money so that her brother and her mother can survive. Sacrifice another or part of themselves in order to save others or save themselves from further torture. Then you have the nobles, the Peter Petroviches and the Svidrigalovs. It's a hard name. Those that may take part in crime throw the less fortunate under the bus in order to keep their power. Even more sinister, they may take part in crime and malicious acts out of boredom. Because what do you have left to do when you already have everything, but you are also anxious about keeping the power for yourself? These people sacrifice others to keep their standing. These people believe that they become God because they can. They have the power to turn all those below them, or so they think. From those two opposites seems to emerge a middle. Those in the middle who choose to be oblivious to, not the crimes, but exactly why the crimes happen. These are the people who say, well, just work harder. Don't be so depressed, my friend. Just live. I see these people as the Rasmusikins, who don't even realize why their friends are suffering so much. They're lighthearted and will come back every time with a frivolous type of hope. But these people are not the ones who change hearts. They may be the most dangerous of all, because the oblivious keep things in place when, if they all band together, they would have had the power to make things better. They have some hope, and maybe even the means and resources to change how these things are done. But the oblivious seem to let it be, take a break, because actually getting into these things requires a deep amount of suffering and sacrifice to find any grace in it. But soon, nature seems to take hold. Peter Petrovich was caught when he tried to throw Sonya under the bus. Raskolnikov ended up turning himself in. Even Svidrigailov put a bullet through his head. A man who had seemingly everything when Dunya did not choose to be with him because she was righteous and she did not believe that being with him would be a good, just thing. And from these classes, an odd person emerges. Someone that seems to only come from a force of nature. Sofia Semyonova Marmeladov. I think I said that right. A person who chooses by her own overflowing faith to sacrifice all of herself so that Raskolnikov's heart may change. There are not many Sonyas out there. There are not many who would sit next to a murderer and say, I still love you, all of you, and I will always hope that you will repent and find hope again. These are the people who will say, murder is murder, whether it is for a good cause or not. But I will still love you and hope for you anyway. These people do not sacrifice others to save themselves. They do not sacrifice others for a common good. They choose to lay down their own life for the criminals, fully knowing that they may be swallowed whole. They lay their life down for the unfortunate, knowing that it may not change a thing, but always holding hope that maybe one day hearts will change eventually. And many of us look to these people like they are the oddest creatures because you're not going to survive that way. Don't you know? It's a dog-eat-dog world, and you will get taken advantage of. And these people would reply, maybe so, but I will carry the hope. And to end this particular analysis, I have a Bible quote. Matthew 12:26. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand?